Hey everybody, welcome to the Midnight Ride. It's midnight, 12:01 Wednesday morning. We're about to ride. Get inside, baby. Get inside, we're about to ride. Get in here. I'm gonna share this out. You share it out too. We're gonna watch some cool videos, hang out, tell a few jokes, hit each other, whatever we want. Midnight, the free country. We can live our dreams. It's the Midnight Ride. I got videos for you. We got 5 different videos we're gonna watch on this midnight ride. Count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos. Sweet videos. You're gonna love them. But in just a second, we're gonna get started. But I want to welcome you to what this is. It's a midnight ride. It's one of the coolest things you've ever experienced in your life. We're gonna watch videos together. I've never seen these videos. I don't know what they are really. I just picked them out because they look cool. And they may be cool, and I hope they are, but they may not. And then we'll clown on them like Mystery Science Theater or whatever that show was where they clowned on videos. But, you like that? Come on in. If you don't, hang out, come and go, come and say hi and leave or whatever. But if you're here later on, anyone here later on, still comment, take part, because that helped us, and I love hearing from you. I like comments. Comments make the world go round, and they are a pleasant sound to the algorithm. Just like hitting that like button, hit that like button, no matter what time you're here, because you can never be late. Hit that like button. That would be great. I would love that. That would make me happy, you know. I like to be happy. I'm happy right now. I'm happy right now because I got a cool friend who smoked me up before the show. If you ever have weed and someone's in need, hook them up, because you never know what that means to that person. And thank you to Lady A. She saved the day, come through in a big way, helping me on this midnight ride, because, it's nice to have a good mentality when you're settling into a midnight ride. But come on inside, 'cause that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We're going to have us a midnight ride. But yes, like and share, no matter when you're here, because you cannot be late. But if you guys are ready, I'm ready to start our first video. Like I said, I haven't seen any of these. None of these videos have been vetted by me. So we're going in cold on all of these. Now, this first one is from a channel that I like a lot. I respect the hell out of this channel. So I imagine it's going to be really good. It's from the Y-Files. And this one has to do with the Cisco Grove incident. We're going to check it out together, and I'm going to be, checking it out with you and commenting on it with you. So hang out with me and watch this on a midnight ride, and I'll be back with you after.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by our new card game, Go Hecklefish. Yes, that's a thing. In September 1964, Captain McLeod and Sergeant Barnes were dispatched from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. They were sent to investigate a UFO sighting in Northern California. Wright-Patterson AFB got lots of UFO reports. 99% of them could be explained, and a sizable percentage of those were just hoaxers looking for attention. The other 1% were classified as UFOs and sent on to Project Blue Book. What happened from there, McLeod didn't know. The fact that he was being sent to the other side of the country meant this sighting was important to the Air Force. McLeod had a copy of the teletyped report from the UFO tracking office. It was stamped with an unusual priority notification. It read, UFO landing with entities reported by missile technician in Tahoe NF, Sacramento. Orders, investigate and contain via usual protocols ASAP. McLeod's first step was to interview the witness. And even after 17 years as an investigator, this was the strangest UFO story he'd ever heard.
Here you are, sir. Belvedere martini, shaken, not stirred. Pearl onions.
Yeah, thank you, honey. Grab a chip off my stack and get yourself something nice, would you? Got a girl.
Ah, new face at my table. May I join you, Mr.
Pond. James Pond. Go ahead, take a load off.
I'm Dr. Human, the owner of this establishment. Merci. You seem to be down a few chips, Mr. Pond. I hope you're finding our tables fair.
Yeah, you know what they say about chips, don't you? It's not the size of the stack that counts. It's how you slide it in a pot. Besides, I heard this is the best casino in Monaco.
Flattery may work out there, Mr. Pond, but in here, it's your bets that count. Would you and your small stack care to raise the stakes?
Fortes fortuna juvat.
Well, judging by your lack of fortune, your boldness does not seem to be working tonight.
Don't worry about me. I got good instincts for the game.
Yeah, but instincts can be
Monoliths cover up shadow pe-
not guaranteed. Vincent Alvarez and Tim Trueblood were headed to Cisco Grove. It was a Friday morning, September 4th, 1964, when Donald Shrum set out for the woods. Don and his two friends, Vincent Alvarez and Tim Trueblood, were headed to Cisco Grove. It was about 3/4 of the way to Lake Tahoe, 80 miles or so, about an hour and a half drive. The three men worked for Aerojet Corporation, a military subcontractor in Sacramento. Don was a welder and specifically worked on Polaris and Titan nuclear missiles, a stressful job. A weekend with friends bow hunting deer in the Tahoe National Forest was just what he needed to clear his head. Firearms were prohibited in the National Forest this time of year, and that suited Don just fine. He was a skilled bow hunter. He preferred the bow over a rifle anyway. It felt like real hunting. It was quiet, peaceful even.
Well, as long as he's not hunting with hooks and worms, he's all right by me.
The men quickly set up camp, hit the forest, and fanned out. They had no communication equipment, so they had to stay within shouting distance. They had an agreement that if anyone got separated by nightfall, they would return to the campsite. By sunset, Don hadn't spotted any deer. As he decided to head back to camp, he realized he got turned around at some point. He was lost. He shouted for his friends, but didn't get a reply. Being out in the woods alone at night wasn't a good idea. Other hunters had reported bears and other predators in the area, but it was getting dark and the temperature was dropping. Don had no choice. He'd be staying in the woods that night, but there was no way he was doing it at ground level. Don made for high ground, found a massive pine tree rooted on a cliffside, and started climbing.
You see, I normally think it's stupid you came from monkeys, but I gotta admit, sometimes it comes in handy.
Don had a military-type belt that could serve as a harness. He found a strong branch and secured himself. He was high enough that a bear or wildcat would have to work to reach him, but they could reach him, so he'd have to stay awake all night. Don was fighting sleep when he saw a light through the trees. He assumed that his friends had reported him missing, and this was the Forest Service sending out a rescue helicopter. He scrambled down the tree and lit a couple of signal fires he built. He started shouting and waving his arms. By the time the light was within about 50 yards, Don realized it wasn't making any sound. It wasn't a helicopter. The light floated silently and slowly approached Don's location. He quickly put out the signal fires and climbed back up the tree. It was dark and he was wearing all camouflage. His plan was stay still, stay quiet, and wait for the light to pass.
Joan asked what this is about. This is an episode of the Y-Files. Welcome to the Midnight Ride, by the way. This is an episode of the Y-Files, and it has to do with an alien encounter being recounted in this story, the Cisco Grove incident. And that's what we're watching.
The light was small, maybe 8 or 10 inches across. At first, Don thought this was a tiny spacecraft. The light moved slowly and silently. Then the light started swaying. It was scanning the area. The motion of the light allowed Don to make out the shape of the craft. It wasn't small. The ship was an enormous black cylinder, 150 feet long, the size of a 14-story building lying on its side. The beam of light was searching the canyon, the trees, the large rocks in the area. Then the light stopped. On the hull of the craft, Don saw 3 horizontal slits of light appear. The slits expanded into tall, narrow rectangles of light. They were windows or doors opening on the side of the craft. Then from the middle window, there was a flash of light and a dark object shot down the canyon. It was another smaller ship. By this point, Don was terrified. A few seconds later, the small ship floated up to the ridgeline near Don's tree and came to a stop. He could see a blinking light on top of it. It was shaped like a flying saucer that he'd seen in pictures. Don was doing everything he could to remain still, but he was trembling. The silence made the experience worse. He could hear the sound of the wind blowing up from the canyon and hitting the trees, but the loudest sound was his blood pumping through his ears. He hadn't believed in UFOs or aliens or any of that. He considered himself a regular guy. He was a welder by trade. On the weekends, he enjoyed hiking, hunting, or just hanging out with his family. This was the last thing he expected. Don didn't move. He had to remind himself to breathe. He looked at his hands, and he was squeezing his bow so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. 5 minutes went by, and it was an eternity. Then Don heard branches breaking and bushes rustling. Something was forcing its way through the brush and headed right for his tree. For the next 2 or 3 minutes, the stomping and scraping got louder and louder. Whatever this was, it was getting closer. The sound stopped. 2 shapes emerged from the brush. At the tree line stood a pair of beings, humanoid but definitely not human. They were between 4 and 5 feet tall, wearing silver suits. Don couldn't make out their faces, but he could see they were wearing some kind of eyewear. He thought they resembled welding goggles. The beings seemed interested in the surroundings. They were carefully picking leaves and placing bits of soil into tubes with long, slender fingers. They slowly walked in the direction of Don's tree. He instinctively tightened his belt that was wrapped around a large branch. The being stopped, and Don held his breath. Then he saw the 2 creatures slowly tilting their heads back as they scanned up the tree. They must have heard him. Then they saw him. Within the goggles, he saw large round eyes that dominated the beings' faces. Their eyes locked with his, and they walked toward him and stopped at the base of the tree. Don wasn't up all that high, maybe 10 to 12 feet off the ground. If these beings reached toward him or could jump in any way, they could get to him. The beings looked at each other and made sounds that sounded like the hooting of an owl. Then they looked back at Don. he felt a wave of panic wash over him. He couldn't tell if they meant him harm or what their intentions were at all. He just stared at them and tried not to move. A few seconds later, he heard more crashing through the trees. Bushes were bending and breaking. Whatever was coming was big and it was heavy. A third figure appeared at the tree line. It was casting a large shadow and moving mechanically. It was a robot.
Wait. Did you just say it was a robot?
Well, we don't know for sure. It was basically the same size and shape as the humanoids, maybe a little taller. Don later described it as looking like and moving like a robot. It stopped under Don's tree between the two smaller beings. It looked like a robot from pulp magazines. It was about 6 feet tall and metallic. It had a boxy torso and a square head. It had no neck and a square jaw. When it opened its mouth, the entire jaw opened.
Like the Iron Giant?
Exactly like that, just scaled down. The robot had reddish-orange eyes that glowed like flashlights in the dark. It was looking at him. The two humanoids hooted again, and the ship sounded a reply. As if responding, the robot's arm lifted and its metallic hand adjusted its jaw. The robot angled its face towards Don, its mouth opened, and there was a loud hiss. There was a jet of white smoke like steam from a kettle. Then Don felt the vapor hitting his face.
Indica or sativa?
Well, Don's brain told him to react, but his muscles didn't respond. He was paralyzed.
Indica.
His vision got blurry, then everything went black.
All right, so Joan, this is about a story. This guy, like he's telling you, he's trapped in the woods, right? And he's being attacked by these robots. And they're shooting him with gas. And like Hecklefish was saying, it's probably indica. He's in the couch right now. But that's what we're watching is a Cisco Grove incident.
Don woke up slumped over the branch. It's a good thing his belt was firmly attached or he would have fallen out of the tree. He shook off the paralysis and was hit with a wave of nausea. He looked down and the beings were trying to climb after him. Don was dry heaving as he inched higher up the tree. The robot reached for its jaw again, preparing another attack. Action of a second later, the arrow hit the robot square in the chest. They stumbled backward. The humanoids retreated to the tree line. It worked. Then the robot steadied itself. Along with the beings, it returned to the base of the tree. It raised its arm, opened its mouth. There was a hiss and another blast of white vapor. Don inched a little higher, but he couldn't breathe. It was like there was no air. He felt himself black out again. When he came to, the humanoids were trying to figure out how to get him out of the tree again.
Knock!
He grabbed another arrow. He drew back as far as he could.
Loose!
He released the arrow. Again, he hit the robot square, and again there were sparks. And again, it stumbled backward. The humanoids also retreated. Before the robot could get its balance, Don hit it square in the chest again. This time it almost lost its balance and fell over, but it didn't. It regained its footing and started back toward the tree.
I keep shooting that thing!
But Don reached for his quiver. It was empty. He was out of arrows. Don woke up and retched. He wasn't sure how long he was out, but the humanoids were now climbing a rock next to the tree. They hooted and the robot lifted its arm. Don patted his pockets. Matches. He grabbed his baseball cap and set it on fire. He threw this at the robot and all three stepped backward. Don then started lighting everything he had on fire. He tore pieces off his jacket, lit those on fire, and sent them down. Again, he was hit with vapor and knocked out. And this went on for hours. Don was knocked out by the gas over and over again, but he kept burning things and dropping them down. He burned every bit of clothing he had except his shirt and jeans. Shoes, socks, gloves, everything gone. Which could be a problem, it was getting cold. The fires would give him a few seconds to adjust his position, but not enough time to get out of range of the vapor. Then the matches ran out. He threw everything he had at the creatures. His quiver, his compass, his canteen. All he had left were a few coins, and he threw those too. After waking up from another vapor attack, Don saw a hint of orange in the clouds. The sun would be up in an hour, but he didn't know if he could survive that long. He was exhausted and he was out of options. He thought about his wife and daughter as he passed out again. Don opened his eyes and the humanoids were gone.
No!
But now there were two robots at the base of the tree.
Oh no.
Arcs of electricity bounced between them like a Jacob's ladder. They were pooling their energy. Both robots reached for their jaws and opened their mouths. Don tried to scramble higher, but the air around him suddenly got so cold. He choked, he couldn't breathe. He knew it was almost over. He felt himself blacking out. As he was losing consciousness, he wondered if they'd ever find his body. Who would be at his funeral? What would his head be? He thought to himself, this is going to be hard on my little girl. Then a cloud of smoke hit him. Don was right. It was over.
This is really fascinating to me. This could be a hallucination story, though, right? He could be hallucinating all of this. What do you think? Right now in the story, where are you? I am wondering if this didn't really happen to him. Need to hear more? Let's hear more. We're watching the Cisco Grove incident from the Y-Files on the Midnight Ride.
He made it. Don carefully adjusted his belt and slowly came down from the tree. He grabbed his compass and headed back to camp, barefoot, freezing, and exhausted. He told his friends what happened. They believed him. One of them saw the ship too. And when Don got home, he told his family what happened. Now, his mother-in-law knew
Wait.
What?
He told the mother-in-law? Always a mistake.
Well, he told his wife and she told the mother-in-law.
Women.
What? Communication is important in a marriage.
Oh, you poor simple bastard.
Anyway, his mother-in-law knew an astronomy professor at a local community college. She thought his science background could help him explain the lights, the object, and what happened. A couple of weeks later, Don spoke to the professor and recounted every detail he could. The professor thought this event was important and decided to contact the nearby McClellan Air Force Base.
Everyone's got a big mouth in this story.
The professor gave the Air Force a summary of Don's story and the location of the incident. Within days, 2 investigators were sent from Wright-Patterson AFB in Ohio, Captain McLeod and Sergeant Barnes. They didn't want to meet Don at his house. Instead, they met him at a vacant rental in the area. They told Don to come alone. He did. The only things in the house were a table and 2 chairs.
Sketchy.
Well, they just wanted to control the area and hear Don's story without his family around.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, remember Don worked at a highly secure nuclear missile facility. The Air Force needed to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I don't trust these guys.
Yeah, well, they brought along a bulky reel-to-reel tape recorder and extensively documented Don's entire 12-hour encounter. The investigators asked Donald detailed questions about the creatures. What did they look like? Their height, skin texture, clothing. How did they move? What abilities or tools did they have? They asked specifics about the large ship, its shape, visible features like lights and markings. How did it maneuver? They asked Don how he fought back against the attack, how effective he was, and which creatures he targeted. They asked for a detailed map of the area. What was the elevation, topology, what kind of rocks and trees were there? After they had all the details and chronology of events, the investigators switched into interrogation mode.
And here we go.
The friendly investigators weren't so friendly anymore. The investigators became interrogators, and they came at Don hard.
Time to lawyer up, Chief.
They offered alternative scenarios for what happened. Were there weapon tests going on?
Lawyer.
Was Don intoxicated on drugs or alcohol?
Lawyer.
Was this actually teenagers playing an elaborate prank?
Lawyer.
Could this have been Japanese soldiers that Don mistook for aliens?
Japanese soldiers.
Yep.
In the woods? In the middle of the night?
Yeah, Don said that was ridiculous. He saw what he saw, he was telling the truth. He even showed them an arrowhead that had bits of metal on it from the impact with the robot. The Air Force took the arrow as evidence.
And he never saw it again.
And he never saw it again. The investigators left and did not follow up. During rifle season, Don went back to the area where the encounter happened. There was an orange circle around the tree. The whole area had been raked clean for about 50 feet around the tree. There were still rake marks in the dirt and a few cigarette butts around the perimeter. It was obvious the Air Force was there and cleaned everything up. Soon after that, Don developed anxiety. He suffered severe PTSD, including walking nightmares for about a year. Hearing owl sounds would trigger a panic attack. His welding skills declined, he was fired from his job, and his family almost went bankrupt.
He could have sold his story or wrote a book.
Yeah, but he didn't want his name attached to this. His neighbors thought he was crazy. He thought he was crazy. His family had to move in with relatives in Arizona, and the only work he could find was low wage. The event ruined Don's life, and he wanted nothing more to do with it. He tried to put it out of his mind, and slowly he was able to recover. He was finally free of the Cisco Grove UFO encounter. Then, 14 years later, the phone rang.
This one is wild. Now, Joan was saying she thought hallucinations. She thinks he's just hallucinating all of this. Or maybe making it up. What do you think? You out there in Midnight Ride land. I feel like this happened to him. You know? But that don't mean it's not a hallucination. I need to know more about this man. I need to know more about his drug habits and his dealer and where he gets his cannabis from. I maybe need to get some and try it, and maybe it happens to me.
Don's case resurfaced when groups like NICAP and MUFON were going through old files. His was intriguing enough to attract the attention of Hollywood. Don's story ended up on an NBC special called Project UFO. Paul Cerny, an investigator for NICAP, filed a Freedom of Information request, and it took a couple of years, but they finally released the file. The file said what Don experienced didn't happen. The report said the incident was psychologically based and dismissed it as a hoax or a delusion. But the file also contained a signed affidavit from Vincent Alvarez, who said he saw a craft descending toward Don's area at the time of the event. In the mid-2000s, Don finally started talking about the event. In 2011, a book was published, Aliens in the Forest, the Cisco Grove UFO Encounter. Though Don's story was now available to the public, it's one of the lesser-known UFO stories.
Gino knew about it.
Oh yeah, we got the story from Gino's Story Hour. If you want to hear his take on it, there's a link below.
He gets into it.
He does. But did it really happen? Don's story has been consistent for 50 years. He's never tried to capitalize on it. The opposite happened. This encounter broke him financially and psychologically. There's also the other eyewitness, Vincent Alvarez, who said he saw the ship. And the Air Force did send investigators across the country to look into this. They did admit they took something from Don, presumably the arrow or arrowhead. On the other side, there's no actual physical evidence. The Air Force never returned the arrow. Don said they cleaned up the site. And if they did, they didn't document this or test the soil for radiation or anything like that.
That we know of.
Well, true. The Air Force did want to keep this quiet. But these creatures had anti-gravity technology, yet they couldn't figure out how to climb a tree. Why not fly the smaller ship over? And I don't like that the beings and the robot are described exactly like 1960s sci-fi. That makes me skeptical. Also, Don said moonlight helped him see the ship, but there was no moon that night. Don said he found another one of his arrows, but we don't know if it was tested or what happened to it. Was the Cisco Grove UFO encounter real? Well, it was real enough to Donald Trump. It destroyed his life. He lost everything and almost lost his mind. But the Air Force said that he lost his mind before the encounter. A 12-hour life-or-death struggle with aliens. A man stuck in a tree firing arrows at a vapor-shooting robot. A government investigation and cover-up. You have enough information to decide if it's true. But one thing is for sure, it's a great story. And to me, that's all that matters.
That's all that matters to me on the Midnight Ride, too. And it's all that matters to Patches. That's all we care about. And you're on a midnight ride. That was our first video, the Cisco Grove incident. But we're getting ready to start our next video. And like I said, I haven't seen any of these. I like that one though. I love AJ though, and Hecklefish. I like everything he does really. The Y Files is one of my favorite channels. I recommend it. It's a very big channel on YouTube. I think he's got a Rumble channel too. By the way, hello Rumble. Hello to Rumble. Rumble is our best platform. I don't care where you're at. Go over to Rumble because that's the place to be. Patches Kitty will tell you. Rumble is our free speech platform. So if we go down from a copyright strike or something like that, we'll stay up on Rumble. Come over there and check us out. But I got 4 more videos for you. 4 more videos on this midnight ride. Our next video has to do with spirituality, I think. I'm not really sure. It's what was it? It was how to speak like magic. So this is going to be on speaking like magic. I guess on the power of words. I don't know. We're going to find out on this midnight ride. I'll be right here with you, so don't be afraid. I'll be right here with you, so let's check this out.
Welcome to a magical realm where words do more than just communicate. They have the power to mold your reality. In this world, language is not just a tool for talking or writing. It's a force of transformation capable of changing your life. This is the domain of conscious language, where every word you speak or think acts like a magic spell, shaping the world around you. Conscious language is all about choosing your words deliberately to spark positive changes in your life. It's a step up from the automatic way we often speak without thinking, tapping into the profound influence words have on making our wishes a reality. In this guide, we'll dive into what makes conscious language tick and share hands-on tips for weaving it into your day-to-day conversations. But here's a heads up. With this powerful tool comes the need to tread carefully. Conscious language isn't just about getting what you want. It's about speaking with integrity, always aiming to benefit not just yourself, but those around you. Words are not mere tools for chatting. They hold a kind of magic, shaping our experiences and touching deeper layers of our being than we often realize. Imagine how just hearing the word love can brighten your mood, or how fear might make you uneasy. That's because words reach deep into our psyche, triggering emotions and coloring our worldviews. So, think about the vibes your words send out. Are they positive and life-affirming, or are they downers? Every word you utter casts a ripple effect, influencing not just listeners, but also bouncing back to you. By embracing conscious language, you're essentially choosing to spread positivity and build better realities for yourself and others. Conscious language lets you wield your words with wisdom, turning everyday chats into opportunities for growth and positive impact. It's about making every word count, aligning your speech with your aspirations, and molding your outlook and actions for the better.
Sounds good so far, right? Kind of sounds like speaking things into existence or like positive affirmations maybe. But let me listen more.
This approach doesn't just change the way you talk, it transforms your way of thinking, encouraging a narrative in your mind that uplifts and supports you. Understanding how our words influence our environment is central to the concept of conscious language, which posits that words have the power to resonate and manifest our intentions. Dr. Masaru Emoto's innovative research into how water responds to different stimuli showcases the tangible effects of vibrational energy. His work provides a fascinating glimpse into how the physical world intersects with the metaphysical, suggesting that our thoughts and words can indeed influence our reality. Dr. Emoto's experiments involved exposing water to various influences, ranging from words and music to direct human intentions, and then freezing it to observe the resulting crystal formations. The outcomes were astonishing. Water exposed to positive, nurturing inputs formed beautiful, complex crystalline patterns, while water subjected to negative influences produced irregular and fragmented patterns. This discovery implies that water can act as a reflector of the energy it receives, responding visibly to the vibrations around it. The implications of Dr. Emoto's research extend beyond the laboratory, inviting us to consider how our own words and thoughts resonate through our surroundings. His findings suggest that positive affirmations and intentions can materially affect the world around us, reinforcing the idea that our language and thoughts hold creative power. In essence, Dr. Emoto's work encourages us to view words as more than just tools for communication. They are instruments that can shape our reality, influence our well-being, and reflect our innermost thoughts and intentions back into our environment. By choosing our words with care and intention, we harness the ability to create positive changes in our lives and the world around us, illustrating the profound connection between our consciousness and the material universe.
I think I'm getting it. Are you getting it, Joan? I think I'm getting it. It's about manifesting what you want by using speech that attracts the things you're looking for, you know, and that words have power, and that your self-talk even matters, and you got to really watch how you speak. I'm getting it. I'm getting it, Joan. I'm hearing it.
The concept of shaping our reality through language is akin to the meticulous artistry of a painter crafting a masterpiece. Just as an artist selects colors and strokes with purpose, we can choose our words with the same deliberate intent, creating changes in our lives. This practice, reminiscent of ancient spellcasting, transcends mere words to embrace the true power of communication. Throughout history, various cultures have understood and harnessed this power, whether through the rituals of ancient civilizations or the practices of contemporary seekers. Despite the diversity of methods, the core belief remains: words wield transformative power. At the heart of this practice is intention. Every word we speak carries an energy that impacts our world. By articulating our desires with focused intent, we initiate the process of manifestation, turning our aspirations into reality. Here's how you can apply this timeless wisdom. 1. Define your intent. Be clear about what you want to achieve. Envision your goal with precision to create a focused intention. 2. Choose your words. Select language that resonates with your desired outcome. Words should be uplifting and constructive, mirroring the energy you wish to manifest. 3. Speak with belief. Pronounce your words with conviction. Your faith imbues your language with the strength to effect change. 4. Act. Align your actions with your words. This alignment amplifies the energy, reinforcing the manifestation process. 5. Let go. Release your attachment to the outcome. Trust in the timing and manner of the universe, allowing your desires to materialize naturally. By adopting this approach, you position yourself as the architect of your destiny. You're not merely casting words into the void, but actively participating in shaping your existence. This method isn't about exerting control, but aligning with the universe's rhythms, treating your words as sacred tools that pave your path. Engage with this art form respectfully and watch as your reality transforms, reflecting the power of your words and intentions. Conscious language is not just a contemporary idea, but a practice deeply embedded in history, resonating with beliefs held by ancient civilizations about the power of words. Recognizing the historical depth of conscious language can enrich our understanding and use of it today, enhancing its impact on our lives. Ancient cultures, such as the Egyptians and Greeks, revered words for their creative and transformative abilities. They believed that words could bring intentions to life and influence thoughts, emotions, and outcomes. This reverence underscores the enduring recognition of words as potent tools that resonate with specific energies and have the power to shape our existence. Today,
Sorry, that was a weird pause. I apologize, but it's just making me think of that experiment where you write words on glasses of water and then analyze the water under a microscope, and it causes the crystals to be different. Like if you write love on there, if you write hate, the words have impact on the water. So I don't know. I need to really think about this. I got to watch this one like 3 or 4 times. I really need to think about this because words are very important to me. And I think I underestimate the power of them. It's like Joan was saying, even the things you say to other people, things you may not even think that much on, that may not mean what they take it as, just whatever. It carries a lot of weight too.
we can draw upon these time-honored insights, integrating them with modern approaches like neuro-linguistics programming, NLP, which employs language to rewire the mind and shift perspectives. Similarly, practices like meditation and mindfulness encourage us to be deliberate with our internal and external dialogue, fostering a more intentional and positive communication style. By marrying the wisdom of ancient practices with contemporary methods, we can leverage the full potential of conscious language to manifest our goals and transform our reality. However, wielding this power responsibly demands ethical mindfulness. We must be considerate of how our words impact others, aiming to uplift rather than harm, and always respecting individual autonomy and consent. In the spirit of ethical practice, it's vital to engage in conscious language with sensitivity to others' boundaries and readiness to explore these concepts. Consent is key. Never impose your linguistic intentions on someone who isn't receptive. This respect for personal boundaries not only fosters trust, but also underscores the integrity of conscious language use. Accountability is another cornerstone of ethical language use. Reflect on your intentions, ensuring they align with your core values and contribute positively to those around you. If your words cause unintended harm, take responsibility, offer a genuine apology, and learn from the experience. Embrace conscious language as a tool not only for personal growth, but also for empowering and uplifting others. Your words have the power to inspire change and promote values like justice and compassion. By using conscious language thoughtfully, you contribute to a collective wave of positive transformation, building a more inclusive and empathetic world. Positive affirmations are a powerful method to change how you think and feel about yourself, effectively reshaping your reality. By adopting affirmations, you're tapping into the ability to rewire your brain, fostering positive changes in your attitudes and life. This approach works much like updating software in your mind, introducing new, constructive thought patterns to replace outdated, negative ones. Through repeating affirmations, you're planting seeds of optimism and growth in your mental garden, nurturing them to develop into positive life changes. Studies suggest that this practice can alter the brain's neural pathways, influencing your actions, emotional state, and overall sense of well-being.
I tried doing that. I tried doing affirmations. Have you ever tried affirmations? I try them, and it's hard to stick with them. I find myself falling off that wagon all the time. I guess it's something you got to really stay at. You know, they say it takes 30 days to build a habit. Maybe I need to have discipline and just make myself do the affirmations for 30 full days in a row, and then they'll become a habit. But I try to have some at that ready, just to call on them right away. Like I'm blessed and highly favored is one I like a lot. I've got this. I'm wired to win. Uh, I got, I guess I don't have that many, but I got a lot that I call on, when I'm in a tough situation or something. But I try to do it. It's just hard.
To make the most of affirmations, it's vital to pick phrases that genuinely resonate with you and target specific aspects of your life you wish to improve. For instance, if confidence is an area you're keen to enhance, regularly affirming, "I am worthy and deserving of success and happiness," can be impactful. Consistency is crucial for affirmations to work. Make it a habit to recite your chosen phrases daily, whether out loud or in your mind, and consider writing them down in visible spots around your living or workspace. The more you interact with your affirmations, the deeper they embed into your subconscious, steering your thought processes toward positivity. Language is not just a tool for everyday communication, but a bridge to our innermost goals and dreams. By consciously selecting and using words, we can unlock significant positive changes in our lives. This practice of conscious language is not about magical incantations, but about setting the stage for real, positive changes in how we view ourselves and our potential. By integrating positive affirmations into your daily routine, you're not just wishing for a better life, you're actively constructing it. Your words have the power to break down barriers and open up new realms of possibilities, enabling you to forge the reality you've always desired. Embrace the strength of affirmations and watch as they transform your world, one positive word at a time.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what he said. I'm going to keep doing these affirmations until I get it through my head. And I'm sorry, Joan. I need to pray. I need to pay more attention to what I say. I need to do that. Joan's my manager and my best friend, and I lay too much on her sometimes, and I apologize. But I need to set myself a goal. You're right. Set myself a goal, and then, you know, just every time I fall down or mess up, just get back up and keep trying until it becomes a habit, until it becomes something that's ingrained in me. But this is a midnight ride, and we're 2 videos deep. We got 2 down, got 3 to go on the midnight ride. So this next one, I have no idea what it's about. The title caught my eye. You wanna know what the title was? Oh shit, it's happening. So whatever it is, we're about to find out together on the midnight ride. But yeah, set a goal. Goals are good. I like goals. But we got to get riding on this midnight ride. We got more videos to watch. All kinds of things. We got to learn. We got things to learn. There's videos to learn here later. Learning to do. But share this out. Get this out. Get your friends in here. Invite everybody that you like, and even people that you don't like. Get them in here so you can make fun of them for not being in here already. So let's see. Let me get this up here. Let's find out what's about to happen. Because it's not about to happen. They say it's happening. Oh shit, it's happening. That's the name of this video. So let's check it out on the midnight ride.
The heart of the American dream is in cardiac arrest.
In the first 9 months of last year, private investors bought 3,196 single-family homes in our greater metropolitan area. 1 out of every 7 houses sold.
40% from the start of the pandemic.
In the final half of 2022, the typical U.S. home sold for a record-shattering $468,000. Massive private equity firms like Blackstone and Pradium Partners have backed a relatively new breed of homeowner, the corporation. This growing industry buys or builds single-family homes and then rents them out.
New data reveals that economists have been sugarcoating the rate at which financial Goliaths have been swallowing up America's single-family homes. The previous number they estimated had already been a painful lowball of only 18 to 23% of single-family homes being purchased. That lie was merely intended to help the poison go down, because in 2023, private equity firms bought up nearly half, 44% of single-family homes in America. The middle-class American homeowner's dream is now an American renter's nightmare.
Our generation will not be homeowners. They will have us permanently renting.
Meanwhile, the real estate industry is collapsing under the weight of corporate lawfare.
This is insane. Realtors are about to have their commissions cut in half.
And if that wasn't enough to crush the middle class, the lack of serious laws regarding squatters' rights is the perfect enticement for Biden's invading border army.
This woman was trying to get inside her own home, but the previous owner refused to leave.
I saw like about 20 people at my property trying to move in as fast as they could.
After her previous tenant moved out, the home had only been vacant for 10 days.
Unfortunately, some of these squatters have gotten pretty sophisticated.
This guy just come out of nowhere saying he purchased a home and just took a home.
It's a tactic real estate attorneys say they're starting to see all too often. Attorney Richard Olympic says they're called wrongful foreclosures or forged deeds. It's when thieves use forged documents to gain ownership of unaware homeowners' properties.
There's no people's court for challenging a wrongful foreclosure or forged deed. So that's the fundamental problem.
Squatters have turned a mansion into a party house. Police have tried and failed to shut down that party mansion since it started.
People in a local apartment complex say squatters are breaking into their homes and even being violent.
Buying a dream home turned into a nightmare. You heard him, for this family from Queens. The house came with something the new owners did not bargain for, a squatter.
I think if we criminalize, no squatting in residential maintained properties, that's going to solve a lot of these issues, and send it to criminal court and let law enforcement act.
It's not right that my wife had to quit her job 9 months ago. I had to quit beforehand, get myself prepared down here in Texas, because we're next to Eagle Pass, and we quit our jobs 9 months ago. And guess what? We have to watch our household day and night to protect our own land down here. And I'm telling you, these illegals that are coming in, get ready, people, because nobody's doing anything. Nobody's talking. It's all talk. I just want you to know they busted down the gates in front of our military, literally busted down the gates, ran right past them, thousands of them. They didn't do anything.
Lobbyist lapdogs in D.C.'s country club of hubris are on course to drain the country dry and hand it over to the World Economic Forum, meeting the goals of the United Nations Agenda 2030.
And as we rebuild our cities and as we rebuild our country to ensure that every single person has a home, we need to invest and passed the Green New Deal for public housing.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
It deals with the issue of the climate catastrophe that we are living in. We must also pass the Green New Deal for public schools. Because the Green New Deal for public schools, working in conjunction with the Green New Deal for public housing, is a form of reparation for our historically marginalized communities.
We are seeing a recession red alert right now. Over the past few hours, we've seen some leading economic indicators right now suggesting a potential recession in the United States in the next 6 to 12 months. Tell that to the Biden administration. They don't want to hear it. But these things are flashing red right now. We're going to get into a couple of them, coincident indicators that are really decelerating quickly, according to Seeking Alpha. Now, the Fed faces, we've been talking about this, how the Fed is facing a really difficult choice right now. We got the inflation numbers this past week, and we know that the Fed is now really in a rock and a hard place because they do not want to raise interest rates. Absolutely do not want to do it, but they may have no choice because they have either the choice right now to cut interest rates to prevent a recession, which they're not going to do. They just told us basically that's not going to happen. In fact, the opposite may happen in the next month into May. May, month and a half or so, we may see interest rates rise. They may have no choice because we are seeing consumer spending slowing down. We're seeing the trouble in the commercial real estate market right now. We're seeing a huge amount of layoffs of Americans being laid off in the United States. And we saw, of course, the Tyson Chicken Foods story, which is unbelievable, being replaced with illegal immigration to fill those quarters for manufacturing right now. And we're seeing that across the board right now. So real layoffs, slowdown in consumer spending. People are not buying things as much as they were. And we're also seeing interest rates not going down. So where we thought we would see maybe a boom in housing, a boom of consumer spending, Wall Street excited about bigger margins, not happening. In fact, now, because of these interest rates slow down, that we're not going to see these cuts, Wall Street, which had anticipated bigger margins, of course, now it's going to have to revise those numbers down. So the Fed is facing this really difficult moment right now between cutting interest rates to prevent a recession or risk this resurgence of inflation. Again, if the Fed cuts rates and inflation surges, it could lead to a huge financial crisis. And there are a couple of big indicators right now. Again, consumer spending is slowing down significantly. People just don't have the money. Consumer debt is exploding. Credit card debt has accelerated to a level we haven't seen before. I mean, I don't need to tell you, there's so many videos right now floating around on TikTok and other places of 20-somethings saying they can't afford their rent. The rent has ballooned so significantly now they're having to choose between eating and paying rent. This is Biden's economy right now. But they don't want you to know that these problems exist. And if we have these leading economic indicators heading 6 to 12 months into the election, this is a disaster. We, of course, know what happens when an economy is in a recession. You vote those people out. Just ask George H.W. Bush, right? That's what happens. You vote those individuals out. When you have a bad economy, when you are in a recession, you do not win elections. The Democrats are going to do everything in their power right now to make sure that that doesn't happen. And if that means printing more money, they will do that. Newsflash, the American dream as we know it is dead. So the promise of the American dream has long attracted people from all over the world to build a better life for themselves and their families. The American dream promises that if you just work hard enough, you can have the life that you want. Of course, the system is now structured entirely different. Those that don't work are rewarded with the most benefits. It's unbelievable. Yet Americans right now, they're working full, long careers and still can't afford to make ends meet when it's time to retire. This is a shame. And at one point, the middle class was the largest generation. Families could afford a home, a nice car, raise a family, all on one income. Not today. Nearly everything in our economy has shifted in the last few decades. College has become astronomically more expensive. The job market has gone through a complete overhaul. And the housing market especially has changed dramatically. Post-World War II, the American dream became intricately tied with the idea of homeownership in the United States. All sorts of photos from Life magazine showed a family in their front yard with a car in the driveway and a home behind them. Today, many Americans still believe that sentiment. In fact, a new survey out by LendingTree found that 94% of Americans believe that owning their own home is part of the American dream. 94%. But today, buying a home is much different than it was during the building boom. Today, we have an affordable housing crisis in the United States with an incredible demand for homes right now. So while people are working endless hours to make ends meet with their 9-to-5 job, with one day hoping to actually own a home, there aren't even enough homes available to buy even if they wanted one. And if they can afford it anyway, most millennials can't. Baby boomers are able to swoop in and buy them up. But at least Americans can look forward to the final stage of the American dream, right? Retirement. But no, retirement has changed dramatically as well. Outcomes are dire for retirees because most Americans are still relying on outdated accounts and old systems. The 401k, for example, is among the most popular retirement plans in the United States, and yet it yields the most mediocre results. In recent data from Vanguard, the average 401k balance was only $112,000 in 2022. That's right. Since the dissolution of pension plans, the 401k has lost its position as a secure retirement plan. Can you live for the rest of your life off of $112,000 in this economy? Are you crazy? For the most part, a 401k will never lead to wealth. It's a total lie that's been sold to Americans. It hasn't worked for decades, and it's not going to help you build wealth. And your parents or grandparents might have access to a decent Social Security check, but it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a program that's going down the toilet fast because it's not being funded properly. Social Security is crashing. Today, the average monthly Social Security check is a paltry $1,700 a month, and benefits are expected to decrease significantly after the year 2035. Political corruption and the best interests of Wall Street are at the foundation of many, if not all, of these outdated systems. None of it is meant to help you create wealth. At its core, the American dream isn't really about the white picket fence or the 401k plan. It's about financial freedom and the ability to accumulate wealth and pass it down to future generations.
I really like Redacted. That's what that last guy was from. He's from a channel on YouTube called Redacted. And it's a really good news channel. And everything he said there was true. The American dream's dead, but the American dream's been dead for a long time. Carlin talked about it. They call it a dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. From my generation, and I wonder how many people my age are like this. I'm 47, 48 years old. I'll be 48 April 9th. I never even imagined having a house. It was never a dream that I entertained or something I thought was going to happen. Like Joan was saying, when I was a kid, my parents could buy a house. Easy. It was much easier then. Joan's saying many Social Security checks are under $700 because wages were so low in earlier years. Because the value of the dollar. Our economy is in big trouble, really, across the board. We're not doing really good. It's not going good. But this is a midnight ride. We're an hour into the ride, and we have 2 more videos to go. 2 more. This next one, I have not seen. I haven't seen any of these. But I really like this guy. He's Trey Smith. I don't know how you feel about it. It's going to be heavily Christian, heavily religious, but watch this dude, man. He's a master. He's a master. If I ever learn to talk like this dude, I'll go straight to the top. I'll never stop. You'll see what I'm talking about. Trey Smith is a master, but he's a great teacher, and he's going to teach us about the dark cube. That's all I know. We're going to learn about the dark cube, and we're going to learn it together on the Midnight Ride. Are you having a good time? Are you enjoying yourself? I'll be breaking into this one, I'm sure. It's a little bit longer. It's like 20, 4 minutes or something like that. But the dark cube, it's going to be interesting for sure. And Trey's very interesting. So we're going to have a good time. It's the Midnight Ride with Shawn. I'm Shawn. And Patches. Patches is here. We're both riding with you. So strap in. We're going to bring Trey up here and get him ready to take us on a ride. That's Trey right there. But Trey's going to take us on a little trip here on the Midnight Ride about the dark cube.
This video is about the cube, more specifically the dark cube or the black cube. So right here is the dark cube in the Atomic Museum, the dark cube behind me, Heisenberg's race for the bomb.
This is a big chain of uranium cubes. That cube behind you over there.
Let's take a look at it. This is the Heisenberg cube.
That came out of this chain.
Okay.
That's the real.
That's an actual one.
That's 99% pure uranium-238.
And this is the cube right here.
That's it. You're looking at it. Weighs about 12 to 15 pounds.
So what does it do? What does one of these cubes do?
That's what's used in the reactors.
A lot of people may not know this, but when the Nazis were trying to get an atomic weapon, there was a race for the atomic weapon, and under Oppenheimer here in the United States, we got to a nuclear weapon first. But Adolf Hitler and the Nazis were also trying to get an atomic weapon.
Heisenberg was Hitler. I call him Hitler's Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
He was in charge of the nuclear program for Hitler to try to develop an atomic bomb.
Right.
And believe it or not, a lot of people don't believe it, they never got the atomic weapon.
The Germans.
The Germans didn't.
So the Nazis would be able to.
This is the Nazis.
And they were using specifically these dark cubes. He had 664 of them. Perhaps he was too short of 666. Just laying it out there. How close was he, Hitler? And here's an image of what he had.
He never got this to a chain reaction.
Okay.
He had 664 of these cubes on it.
Yeah.
And so this is hanging over a heavy water pit. But he never got a chain reaction.
I just noticed here, so he had 664. Maybe he was only too short. That would be 666 if you went. I just found that interesting.
Yeah.
Now, a cube in and of itself, no matter what color it is just a geometric, one of our geometric shapes. A three-dimensional, six-sided geometrical shape. That's what a cube is, all of its own accord. But the cube, if it's a dark cube or a black cube, can, not always, but can be affiliated with the god Saturn, or the sixth planet, just as it is a six-sided cube. Saturn is often interchangeable with the word Satan. Saturn also, if we go all the way back in time, during the times of the Akkadians and the Sumerians, would be affiliated with the god Enki. You had Enlil and Enki, like good cop, bad cop, to the ancient Sumerian Akkadian world, what would later become Babylon. Now, the black cube is seen often popularly in major pieces of artwork in large cities, like here behind me in Manhattan, and other locations, other major cities around the world, like these black cubes. In fact, King Og of Bashan, it's commonly written that his tombstone was a sort of a black, it would have been rectangular, but it would have been essentially a cube. And that black cube had fallen from the sky, like a falling star. Here, pictured behind me, this is a spiritual or claimed meditational or religious spiritual room in the United Nations. In the center of it is a black cube, a black It's a black cubish object, and it goes to an unnamed god in a kind of a bland trapezoid-shaped room, a black cube for worship at the United Nations. Also, of course, infamously in the endless chain of the Hellraiser movies, the main character Pinhead that would come to drag one's soul to hell, then torture them. The nexus between the world of the living and the eternal damnation was with the cube seen in Hellraiser's main character's hands right there. And of course here also is a cubed stone for the Freemasons, the Masonic temples, having the famous compass on it with the letter G, whatever that may stand for, on a cube. And others, most notably such as Islam, they have the Kaaba stone, which they believe takes the sins away, and they walk in circles around the Kaaba stone in Mecca. On the other end of the fence, you have intelligence agencies, notably Israeli intelligence agencies, named, and I'll be careful on this one, the dark, or I think more appropriately, the black cube. But a cube, though it may in some instances, not all, have just a geometric object, is what it is, one of our three-dimensional geometric objects. A cube may in many instances have occult symbolism or pagan symbolism to it, or dimensional, may also have symbolism that goes for the god Saturn, or the sixth planet. But a cube is, in all reality, it's just an object here in our reality, our three-dimensional reality that we live in. Now, a cube, if we were to take a cube and we were to unfold it into a two-dimensional reality, the cube would become, so this is a three-dimensional, a cube, like a Rubik's Cube is a three-dimensional object. It has 9 squares. 9 is another occult number, 3 on each strip. But like the 9th gate, well, if you take a cube, a three-dimensional object with 6 sides, and you were to unfold it into a two-dimensional object, you would, interestingly enough, get a cross. Now, a cross has comprised, this is the symbol of the Christian faith, would be the cross. Another dimensional object. A cross, a cube unfolded, makes into 6 squares. The diametric opposite of a dark cube might be a cross. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Here in my pre-flood book, I have a section that deals, we have sections that deal in these parts of the book with time, consciousness, space, and matter. After all, 6, right there, 6 in Hebrew would be the Vav, or 6, the number of man. In 6 days, God created, no matter what anyone wants to view those days as, in 6 days, God created the heavens and the earth, and on the 6th day, God created man. On the 7th day, God rested. Now, right over here, you have what Salvador Dali portrayed as Jesus on what is called a tesseract right here. A tesseract would be a three-dimensional object unfolded into a fourth-dimensional space. I tend to like the term higher dimensional space more than fourth dimensional, seems very limiting, but the concept is identical, that it's opening up into a higher or a fourth dimensional space. I have on this little chalkboard 2 different characters. So this right here, this is Tom, and this on this side is with the dress on, only had the color red. This is Sally. And they live in a 2-dimensional world. They live on this piece of erasable chalkboard. Tom and Sally. They are two-dimensional characters. Now, Tom and Sally, in their two-dimensional world, this is Tom and Sally's world right here. And I live in a three-dimensional world. I have the benefit of this extra dimension, meaning that I can come up face to face with Tom or with Sally, and they don't even know that I'm there. More than this, if I were to take my finger and pass it through Tom and Sally's world, they would just see a circle open and close. In fact, they would probably only see a line get bigger and smaller. Take that a step further. Tom, he can't even see Sally as she is. You see, when Tom looks over at Sally, all he would see is a straight line. Tom cannot see these extra dimensions that I have the benefit of. In other words, Tom can't even see Sally the way that she is. Which brings up another question, because if God was living in a higher dimension, looking down on us, what are we covered with? What would God see when he looks from his higher dimension down at us? Cube is a three-dimensional object with 6 sides. And these are the dark cubes. And here's the town.
That's the same picture.
What he was doing, would it have worked?
Yes.
Could it have worked?
Yes, but he never finished the experiment. It never got to a controlled chain reaction.
Mm-hmm. Had he got it first, he would have won the war.
Well, we don't know.
Well,
we
he
don't
could.
know that.
It would have been closer.
He didn't get it.
And a cross is a cube unfolded, as if someone wanted us to understand these simple things. A cross made of 6 squares. So in Salvador Dali's famous painting of Jesus on the cross, but the cross is a tesseract. Tesseract is the higher dimensional object. He is essentially portraying that Jesus is the nexus for number 6, the number of man. Vav is the number 6 in Hebrew, is the nexus for man between not hell and earth, but heaven and earth. And these depictions, like I just showed you of Tom and Sally, are in this book. Again, I pose to you, what does God see when he looks down at us? Are we black cubes, or are we crosses? This is the atomic section of the museum here. As you probably saw this symbol even in the Back to the Future movies. Now, right over here is the Back to the Future car. X marks the spot. The symbol behind me, these are Hebrew letters that just scroll through. Sometimes I find it interesting where they fall. The Tav, the ancient symbol of the Tav, back there on the screen, Tav is the 22nd letter. There's the X, 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. That just came up is the 7th letter. It is the Zion in Hebrew. The Tav is the 22nd, or the last letter. It is the cross. To be very clear what it is that I'm telling you, this behind me, this is modern Hebrew. It's comprised of 22 letters. This language begins, this X-looking symbol back here, this is actually the number 1. That's the Aleph. The Aleph, the number 2 is the Bet. This language behind me, this is where we get the word alphabet. Aleph and the Bet. If we come all the way down to the 22nd letter, it's going to be this symbol down here that in its ancient form will look like this cross. But in its modern form, this symbol right here looks kind of like a doorway, a gateway. And this little dot inside, well, that's actually A yod. A yod is a number 10. 10 is a universal number of completion. It's also the symbol right here for God himself. A little yod looks like a thought, an idea. The Spirit of God. A little yod just dangling between the gateway to reach in from heaven to earth. A little yod, which brings us to this symbol right here, this doorway with the yod inside, the modern form of the tav that you see right there. There's a little yod coming through. That's the symbol for God himself coming through this doorway right here. Here's the tav on the other side. This is the tav in its ancient form, meaning sign or ancient mark. Here in its two-dimensional form, a symbol for man. Man, the sign or mark, the nexus, the X that marks the spot, coming forward in time, creates the gateway through back there, the Zion. Isn't it stunning how these numbers come up? Watch where this goes in a second. Becomes the doorway within which the Spirit of God, the Yod, God himself, reaches through from heaven to earth, through and to save the number 6, man. So here's the Back to the Future car.
This is crazy, right? This is insane. You get what's going on, right? Everything's an inversion. So, the cube unfolded is the cross, the symbol for man. I like Trey. Do you like Trey? Are you having a good time? Trey Smith is who this is. Trey Smith. He's on YouTube. And you gotta look him up. You will love his content. That's who we're checking out on the Midnight Ride.
And it's known for, what did they have to grab in that movie? They had to grab the plutonium. And you had to go 88 miles per hour. I always found that to be an interesting number. 8 in Hebrew is the number of new beginnings, so that'd be like a double of a new beginning. I love personally the number 88. And of course the license plate on the car that spun around in Back to the Future Part 1 was the license plate that said out of time. And over here you had the flux capacitor, and it makes the interesting shape of a Y. It's kind of a replica of what that looked like in the back of the car, the Y symbol. The Y would be a Vav in Hebrew. A Vav, the letter Vav in Hebrew, this is ancient Hebrew that I have on the back of the screen right here. 22 letters of ancient Hebrew. And we're going to count inward from the ancient Aleph. Here we go. Ancient Aleph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 6 right there. That letter looks a little like the Y, or the symbol of man, the flux capacitor in the Back to the Future car, the DeLorean. The number 6, the number of man, the Vav right there. There's 2 6s. There's my ancient form. Right here is my modern form. If we come from our Y, our flux capacitor that needs to go 88 miles per hour to go forward in time, our Vav, our symbol of the man, the number 6 right here. Well, if we were going forward in time, forward from the cross, and we wanted to pass through this doorway, this gateway within which the Spirit of God dwells. Well, I'd like to take my cross right here, my cross with the number 6, 6 squares on it. And I'd like to take this number 6, and I'd like to only go for the arms of the cross and move my 6 to Right up here, you have 7 days in your week. In fact, everything here in our reality, our realm, goes round and round, round and round, round and round. Your clocks, your weeks, your years, your months, your days, round and round. On the 7th day, God rested. On the 6th day, God made man. On the 7th day, God rested. Well, the 8th day is always the new beginning, the number 8. 8 is the day that the Hebrews would circumcise the children on the 8th day. Said that Jesus rose, came out of the tomb on the 8th day, the new beginning. Jesus was crucified on the 6th day, and then put into the tomb. He was in the tomb for the 7th day, just as God rested. And on the 8th day, he would come forth from the tomb. So this would be Friday, he's crucified on the cross. This would be Saturday, the 7th day. And this would be the beginning of the new week. Sunday, the 8th day. So, number 6, right there, crucified on the cross for man. 7th day, going through the tomb. And then on the 8th day, the new beginning, the stone would roll away, opening the doorway within which the Yod, the Spirit of God, would reach through. Now, why don't we just look at that one other way if we're going back and forward in time here. Man, created on the 6th day, the Vav, man is the number 6, passing through the ancient symbol of the Zion on the screen right there, the number 7, and making it to the ancient symbol of the Het, the new beginning. Now the Het, or the number 8, just like there were 8 people that came through that narrow doorway on Noah's Ark, there were 8 people entering a new beginning. Well, the Het right there, that symbol, that's where we today get our infinity symbol, is from the ancient Het, the number 8 right there. 6, Vav, our flux capacitor, or number of man. Zion, right there, the number of the day of rest. And then 8, right there, the infinity symbol, the gateway, the doorway between heaven and earth, the new beginning. And of course, in Back to the Future, to go back or forward in time, you don't just need the flux capacitor or the vehicle, the man. You also need to throw that puppy in hyperdrive and hit 88 miles per hour to go back in time. So you went from nuclear weapons to concepts that where you're throwing it in gear, and you got to have the electricity to hit the car, energize the flex capacitor, the number Y, hit your 88 miles per hour, and you are going back in time. And of course the plate said out of time. I want to make it very clear, I love the number 88. The number 8 in Hebrew, the Het, that's the number of new beginnings. It's also where we get our infinity symbol. 2 8s would be like a double portion. The cross came up. Would be like a double portion of that. I want to thank you for watching this presentation on the dark cube.
That blew my mind. Does that blow your mind? Did you stay with him on that. You just join us. You got to check that out. You're going to have to back up, though. You're going to have to go back in time. You're going to have to hit your own flux capacitor because we got one more video on the Midnight Ride. But if you're just joining us, this is what this is. It's the Midnight Ride. We've been watching videos together, hanging out and watching cool videos. Hey, Ginger, good to see you. And everybody here on Rumble, good to see you guys. And YouTube too. Join in. Participate in the conversation. Even if you're here later on, don't feel like you're late. You're not late. You can participate. I'm rhyming so much tonight. Have you noticed that? I might write a poem. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. But we've got one more video on the Midnight Ride. This one is from Aaron and Melissa Dykes of True Stream Media. We're going to watch that in just a minute. But I like that. I like Trey a lot. Check him out. It's God in a Nutshell. God in a Nutshell on YouTube. Check him out, Trey Smith. He's great. You'll learn a lot from him. If you like that, he'll break down so much stuff for you from the Bible and from religion and from history. He's awesome. Great teacher. And I love his style. I love the way he acts in the videos. He's so cool. But this is going to be a good video, I'm pretty sure. Because I really like True Stream Media. I like all their stuff. But I haven't seen this one. This is their latest. And it has to do with food. So I'm a big eater of food. I like food. So let's check this out, and then I'll be back with you on the Midnight Ride.
This is intended to be a quick follow-up to the last video. The last video I made was just to show that they're putting ingredients that have been banned in other countries into foods when they obviously don't have to. And to ask the question, why? Why is that? I've been seeing a lot of people on social media lately posting stories about how they go to other countries. They leave this continent and they go to other countries. And after being there, not even for very many days, they feel better. And they recognize that that feeling of being healthier and feeling generally overall better, having more energy, less body aches, et cetera, sleeping better, all of it is coming from the food that they're eating being of higher quality. And the people who never leave this country don't have an outside perspective of seeing what that actually is in practice. I didn't until we went over to Europe for the filming of this movie we've been working on for 5 years. That was my first time really leaving this country. And I went to various countries over there and I realized something. The food over there, because I'm a label reader. I read labels like people read novels. Okay, I'm all up in it. I want to know what's going in my body now. The labels over there, like in the UK, for example, you can read a label and it's very basic what's in that food. You do not need a high-level chemistry degree to interpret it like it's a Egyptian hieroglyphic tablet you found in a cave somewhere. You actually could just pick up something off a shelf and read the label and go, oh, this is what's in the food I'm about to eat. And you know what that is. It's amazing. And they have whole stores, like organic gas station-like stores. Do you know here in America, if you found an organic gas station, that would be like finding a flying unicorn or something. That they don't exist. You can't just go into a gas station and expect to find something responsible to eat, hardly ever. You'll be lucky if they have anything there that's not filled with chemicals and additives. Good luck. But over there, whole convenience stores that are organic. When I saw that, I filmed it. I couldn't believe it existed. I was like, wow, this is like seeing Bigfoot or something. I got to get this on tape so I can show the folks back home. And what we have in this country in way of food protection is a ridiculous clown-like joke. We have something known as GRAS, generally recognized as safe, which when people hear it, oh, the FDA says it's GRAS. They're like, oh, it's generally recognized as safe. But what does that actually mean? We generally recognize that it's safe? It has a safe costume on, and we stare at it from across the room and we go, I generally recognize that says the word safe on it. I recognized it. That doesn't mean it's safe, though. It's a joke. So this is up on the Environmental Working Group website, which I referenced in the last video. This is a really great website for learning about what's going on in our food, in our skincare, in our environment. It's a really good website for that. And it's talking here about exactly what GRAS is in very simple terms. Food and chemical companies are permitted to approve the use of new, potentially harmful additives and other substances in snacks, drinks, and more without the FDA's review or approval, all thanks to a regulatory loophole known as GRAS. Generally recognized as safe, is a food category that was created by Congress in 1958, and when they created that, a lot of these chemicals didn't exist, and that designation was intended to apply to ingredients that most people know are okay. Basic things like chicken, water, salt. While the FDA usually has to approve substances intentionally added to food, that's not the case if it's designated GRAS. Once it's designated GRAS, that ingredient can bypass the FDA's pre-market review process, which allows all kinds of stuff to be put in our food that the FDA has never once determined is actually safe. The GRAS rule, finalized in 1997, created a voluntary notification system that lets manufacturers bypass federal regulators' review. Companies themselves can identify and use new GRAS ingredients, but are not required to share that information with the FDA. So that's the company saying, yeah, we said it's safe. We're the company that's going to sell that and make the money off of it. And we say, we recognize that it's safe. And the FDA said, oh, you recognize it's safe? I guess we will too. Back pat, handshake. That's how that works. This process has led to the addition of hundreds of chemicals to our food products without FDA oversight. Since 2000, food and chemical companies have used the GRAS loophole to approve 99% of new food chemicals. 99% have been approved through the GRAS loophole since 2000, according to a 2022 Environmental Working Group analysis. This leaves both the public and the FDA, charged with regulating our food system, in the dark about what's being put in our freaking food. Then they quote Michael Taylor, former Obama food safety czar Michael Taylor. We simply do not have the information to vouch for the safety of many of these chemicals. From this WAPO article, food additives on the rise as FDA scrutiny wanes. Michael Taylor, we have talked about many times. We used to make videos on food and stuff like this all the time. But Michael Taylor is a poster boy for how the revolving door between our government and the corporations that government is supposed to regulate works. So this is former Obama food safety czar, who was also vice president for public policy for Monsanto, who argued while he was practicing law with the firm King and Spalding, which actually represented Monsanto at the time, argued for the de minimis interpretation of the Delaney Clause, a 1958 federal law that prohibited the use of carcinogenic additives and chemicals from being put into the processed foods in this country. And in the 80s, Taylor's argument was for a de minimis interpretation of this. And the FDA went with, well, low exposure to chemicals found to cause cancer in animals be found safe under a, quote, reasonable certainty of no harm standard. Generally recognized. Reasonable certainty. I mean, these are not, certainty is either certain or it's not. Reasonable certainty, what is that? It's just something that they made up. It's just a semantics argument. And none of this de minimis interpretation stuff really addresses continuous low-level exposure, which is what would happen if you have a little bit of it for breakfast and these things you eat, and a little bit of it for lunch and these other things you eat, and a little bit more for dinner and this other thing you drink and this other thing that you eat. And once you do that 3 times a day or however many times a day you eat, which everyone has to eat every day, then you don't know how that cumulative effect of having continuous low-level exposure is actually affecting you and irritating your body over time. And in the 80s, when Michael Taylor was doing this de minimis interpretation, the year before he put out his paper, Deborah Strauss, who was a law clerk to a chief judge in the U.S. District Court, and prior to that was a Food and Drug Law Institute scholar at Yale, wrote a different paper about this. And right on the very first page, she said, From its inception, a subject of great debate, the Delaney Clause is now claimed to be outmoded in large measure due to scientific advances in detection mechanisms. As more food ingredients are tested for potential carcinogenity in animals, more are found indeed to be carcinogenic. Fully half of the substances the National Cancer Institute has tested for carcinogenity as part of its animal bioassay program have been deemed carcinogenic. So now they've detected all this stuff in the food supply. And she says exposure to a low level of carcinogen thus has to be considered a risk for everyone. So that's the argument she was making. And then the following year, we have Taylor making his argument while he's working at the law firm that's representing Monsanto. It's enough to make you want to cheese grate yourself naked over a cactus. It's just insane. It's insane. And the thing is that the because they can argument of this loophole and this ridiculous system they got set up here, the because they can argument does not mean they should. Just because they can do that here, because our system is set up in such a ridiculous clown-like fashion, it doesn't mean they should. And in countries in Europe and Japan, where the governments have seen fit to outlaw these chemicals from being put in the food because they don't want their populations to get sick consuming them. Countries, by the way, which have higher life expectancies than we do here, just by the way, these corporations have shown they can make a different version of the same product that doesn't have that stuff in there. You see this? Why? They don't have to. They've clearly shown they don't. Heinz ketchup in the UK is tomatoes, vinegar, sugar, salt, spice and herb extracts. Spice. Here, tomato concentrate, distilled vinegar, high fructose corn syrup, regular corn syrup, salt, spice, onion powder, natural flavorings. The point is, if they can make clean versions of these items to sell to countries where they don't allow these chemicals in the food, why do they put them in the food and feed it to us here? People want to argue, well, you shouldn't be eating some of that stuff anyway. Well, that's not really the point of this video. And the other issue with that is that people who don't have a lot of money buy stuff like this because it's calories and they can afford it. We live in a country where if you want to buy organic, you got to pay. You got to pay more to not have extra pesticides on your food. You got to pay more for health food. You got to pay more. Somebody in the last video made the comment, when they started putting up health food sections in the grocery store, people should have got wise to how this works. Right?
You know, what she's saying is true. And why do they do it? The same product in another country doesn't have that stuff in it. Why is that? Why? When they make that product another way, why don't they sell it just the way they made it for everyone else who doesn't allow it? It's because we're being poisoned. That's the only reason why.
Shouldn't our food be mostly healthy? How come the majority of our food is not here? It's to the point here where we have headlines like this one from last year. U.S. food additives banned in Europe. Expert says what Americans eat is, quote, almost certainly, end quote, making them sick. That's a headline. They're just putting it in everyone's face. Yep, we know this is a problem. Experts are saying it. Hey, by the way, but in some Bernaysian-like magic trick, they've gotten people to separate the idea that what you eat is supposed to be for nutrition. It's supposed to give you the nutrients you need to exist. Eating is not supposed to be like a hobby just because of whatever tastes good. It's actually supposed to be for nutritional purposes. And sure, sometimes what tastes good, but people are putting up videos all over social media of what people looked like in the 70s, and they're saying, what happened to everyone? Look how thin and healthy everybody looked in the 70s. By the time the 80s came, we had the de minimis interpretation of the Delaney Clause going on. And by the 90s, the Gross loophole. So, take a guess. But it doesn't make sense that we have all of these autoimmune issues, diabetes, obesity, cancer going up, all these insane skyrocketing amounts of allergies. Gee, I can't imagine why. I can't put two and two together and add them and figure this out. It's just too hard. And we actually do have bills that have been introduced. We'll see what actually happens. A bill to direct the Secretary of Health and Human Services to update and clarify its rule on substances generally recognized as safe. Boy, wouldn't that be nice. Why is it taking all this time for them to figure this out? There's another one too that has to do with Food Chemical Reassessment Act. These were both introduced last year. We'll see what happens, you know. But in the meantime, you should read your labels. You should read your labels and become familiar with these things, because they've really gotten people to separate the idea that food, if it's not something that agrees with your body, it can actually irritate the hell out of you. People don't usually think about what it means to have low-level activation of your immune system all the time from irritants, but it's not a good thing. Reading labels saved my life. I literally would not be talking to you guys right now if I hadn't started researching exactly what I was eating and how that could be affecting me years and years ago. I was a very overweight, sick 30-year-old who was on multiple medications. Things were not going well for me. So you got to read your ingredients. 2 websites that I recommend that are really good for information on learning more about what's in food are the Cornucopia Institute and the Environmental Working Group. The Environmental Working Group even has a food scores database where you can look up, they've ranked 80,000 plus products, food products, on nutrients, ingredients, and processing concerns. They even have an app. And you could go to this, and I will put a link so you guys can all go check this out. They have a score. 1 is the best and 10 is the worst, and they score based on nutrition concerns, ingredient concerns like pesticides, food additives, all that kind of stuff, processing concerns. And you can type in a product like Zucaritas. As you can see, on a scale of 1 being the best, 10 being the worst, they've given Zucaritas a 9. And then you can click on that and it can show you why that is, what the concerns are, and it lists it all out here with all the information and everything. It's probably way more information than most people want about their food, but at least it's something. It's an option. It's a way to educate yourself about what you're eating. Unlike the average doctor in this country, where U.S. medical schools only offer 19.6 hours of nutrition education total across 4 years of medical school. I mean, where does that even make sense except in a clown world? And I don't know, this stuff really pisses me off. I think if people really fully understood some of this, there would be a lot more pressure on Congress to not be allowing these things. Anyway, I love you guys. I made that last video just to make it.
All right. I think she was just going to say goodbye. But that was some interesting points. There's some interesting points in that video. Why in the hell do we allow this? Why are we letting them poison us? They can't poison them in other countries because they have the regulations. We don't get offered that food because we don't. We have grass. What's up, Frazier? This is a midnight ride, man. You just caught the ass end of a midnight ride. We were riding all night. We watched 5 videos. That was number 5. Patch has been throwing a fit during all this. I don't know if you heard that, but she's been going hog wild. She might have knocked something over in the course of this. Something might have happened. But yeah, Frazier, I'll be rewatching with you. You know, a little bit tonight and more tomorrow. Most of our views are on a rewatch, by the way. That's why I always say you can't be late. You can never be late. You're not late. No one can be late. Kitty can be late. She's late to be crazy. She's about to be crazy as hell. She got the crazies going on tonight. But this was a midnight ride. We took a great ride. We went through some different stuff, man. The one that I take away the most from is that Cisco Grove incident. But I don't know about if I feel the same way Joan does. Joan thought it was hallucinations. I don't know, man. I think things happen to people that you just can't explain. And maybe he explained it the way he best knew how. You know, they were talking about they didn't believe him because it looked like 70s robots, is what he said. Well, what if that was just the closest he could come to explaining it to somebody? You know, he just saw something that blew his fucking mind. And he didn't know how to explain it in words. So he said, robots. Come here, kitty. She's being crazy. But sorry, Frazier's comment distracted me. Thank you. But then we learned stuff about power of speech. I need to pay more attention to that. The power in your words, the power in your self-talk, how to speak magic basically into your life. We talked about that. We learned about the housing crisis and how the American dream is dead. We already knew that because you have to be asleep to believe it. That's why they call it the American dream. But we learned about that. We learned about the dark cube. We learned about all kinds of things, man. So you're going to enjoy watching this back. Make sure you comment while you're watching it back because I'll be there checking out the comments. I love those. And yeah, this has been great. This great midnight ride. I loved it. I had a great time with you. Be looking for these. There'll be another midnight ride anytime now. Anytime the itch hits me in the midnight, we'll be here riding. But until the next time I see you, God bless. I love you guys. Have a great night, morning, day, everything. Just be awesome. That's your home.